Okay, so we're just going to do a quick video on paddle vests, and this is my whitewater setup. So I'm just going to go through it quickly, and it's first of the season, so I'm just going to go through it and make sure batteries are changed, that type of thing. Anyway, so water bottle that goes in the canoe. I usually hang it on the thwart. I usually have always have a water bottle with me. This one, water bottles, I usually wrap duct tape or Gorilla Tape on it, and it gets used fairly frequently. Obviously from a whitewater side, some village baling pumps, so that aside, helmet and gloves aside. We'll break it down to throw. Get rid of that. So I leave everything tied to it, just so when I grab my kit, I'm not missing things and that type of thing. So just for me anyway, my preference is, especially with the whitewater stuff, I don't want to forget anything. So that's just a throw bag. So I'm going to go through just the basics of what I have in my kit. So I've got a tow on it, which you may or may not want or have. Unless you've got a quick release, you probably don't want to use that without a quick release belt. So I'll go through quickly, and I'm not going to get into depth into pin kits and stuff like that from a whitewater side, but my pin kits and stuff are in this on the side of the vest. So one of the things I wanted to just go through, and this is kind of my whitewater setup, and I'll go through some of just my tripping and canoe setups and different things. So one of the things that beyond your whitewater equipment and throw ropes and stuff like that, we've talked about before in some of the nice videos, is a paddle knife. So in this case, this is a whitewater setup, so I need something. My concern and where I'm going to critically be using this is going to be for entrapment, cutting ropes, that type of thing. So it's there for a purpose, and especially in some of the obstacles and stuff you can get into. So this knife I maintain. It's very sharp. It's meant for cutting rope. I try not to use it for food prep or all the other stuff that we end up using. But I try to keep this maintained so it is very sharp and it does cut the rope. And I'll kind of go through with this setup. This is an Astral setup, which is a good bag, or a good vest. It's got some compartments and stuff like that it can carry stuff in. So with this one, it allows me to take a little bit more with me, especially if I'm in a backcountry trip. So and this isn't I'm not going to review the vests, and I'll go into a couple other vests, but just kind of going through what I would take with me at a minimum. So in this case, I've got some spare gloves, that aside. I've got some 550 cord. Sometimes I'll throw in a swimmer's hat cap to keep your head warm if it's colder out. But one of the things that all my vests do have, and I'll show you a couple others, is kind of, I'm going to go through the basics with the thought process that if I lose my boat and my gear, and especially on a whitewater trip, and especially if we're way in the backcountry or a fly-in, what's on me, and hopefully my life jacket should be always on me. It's going to be whatever's in there that's going to make my life much better, much more comfortable, or change it from a real struggle. So this is just a cell phone waterproof bag, Sea to Summit. There's lots of different types, and I've got some different setups. I'll show you later, but this one is pretty simple. It's waterproof. It keeps what's inside it dry. I've had some good success with these, and they're fairly durable. So in this, as a basics setup, I've got I'll go through this. So I've got a very small knife, little spider scope, serrated, fairly small. I've got a fire steel, decent fire steel with a good striker on it, and for fire, so that's definitely there. Going through here. I've got some wax cotton balls. So I've got 4 wax cotton balls in this case for fire starter. So even when they're wet, I can pull them apart and strike them and get a fire, help me get a fire started. It acts similar to a candle with the wax in the cotton. And then from there I go to, I've got a garbage bag. So it's a full garbage bag, and I've got a reflective emergency blanket. So that's all tucked in this kit. And, how can I use this? Well, definitely for shelter, for blocking wind, etc., etc. The garbage bag, if you want to use it as a, a raincoat if you needed that type of thing, or a poncho, as well as a shelter, that type of thing. Or if you want to stuff it full of leaves, it might help you with a base, right, to keep you off the ground. So some ideas there, and that's all in a fairly small kit that fits in here. So that aside, beyond that, what do I have? And I'm going to have a little bit more in here, just being more of a whitewater in my tripping vest. So I've got spare keys to the car tied to it, right, the vehicle. So, at least when I get out, hopefully I've got my keys if I lose everything else. I've got a compass. In this case, this is a Brunton. So I can't stress enough about the quality of a good compass. Get a compass you can trust that works, and prove it. As well as I have a waterproof flashlight. This one's a diving light, so it'll take the depth and the pressures of water. Not that I'm going to be going that deep, hopefully, with a whitewater vest. So those are some of the basics that I have just in my kit, right? So in here I have it's a waterproof box or small box, a small kit, and this is basically, it's got some first aid. There's some iodine packs, some alcohol pads, some bandages, that type of thing in here, as well as there's a small lighter and a very small knife. So this is kind of a kit that's been with me, and I'll throw it in between different vests. So it's got some basics in there, and basically it's a more first aid than anything. So that always goes with me. Next up, because my paddling knife is mainly, I want to maintain that edge to be able to cut rope. I don't want it getting dull or anything like that. Over the years I've changed up, so I've got a small multi-tool here, just a small Leatherman. Probably gets used the most out of everything in here, because I'm constantly undoing or trying to untie something, or even taking a sliver out. It's pretty handy, right? So the idea of the small multi-tool I've definitely found handy. It's got a file on it, that type of thing, so I could use it to sharpen a blade if I needed. And this one is this is a cold steel. It's a small hunter. They call it the hunter knife. So it's a stainless steel, full tang, but it's fairly small. So this actually stays in my vest, and as much as it gets used, obviously more than my paddle vest knife, it's used for a lot of different tasks, right? I could use it again for feather sticks. It ends up, doing some food prep, on a trip. It ends up with a lot of uses. It's a full tang. It's not a huge knife, but I can definitely do some feather sticks, and I can, small batoning into some dry wood if I needed to. So this one I've changed out over the years, and I've kind of went with this just because it's a full tang, and gives me that advantage to maybe use it a little bit harder. Prior to that, one of the ones that I used to put in this vest, and I'll throw that out, aside was I used to carry these in my vests. And so this is the Swiss Army knife. I think this was their military version. Excuse me. So it's got a locks open the blade. The serrates on this are very functional, as well as it's got a the standard edge here. So it does allow you to do some finer work without the serrates. So I chose that. It's also got a small saw, which is, a fairly effective saw for what it is. Would allow me to maybe cut some wood that's a little bit bigger that I'm not going to be able to manage maybe with my knife. So had that advantage. Screwdriver, bottle opener, the usual, can opener, etc. On the back, it's got an awl, which I do find these handies for, especially for if you're trying to put a hole through something, even kydex, even in some of the boats, where you've got to replace a thwart. It was handy enough to get through that piece of wood, even if you're carving one out to get home, right? So the awls, it was a handy. It's got and obviously a Phillips screwdriver as well. So it was a good choice. It fit pretty good in the kit. My preference was to go with maybe a full tang, and that was that choice there. But for years, these have been in my vests and stuff like that, and they're a great multifunction tool from that perspective. So those are some of the things that are in the paddle vest here. So this is more of a whitewater vest. The idea being that the stuff that's in my vest here, more so, of all the stuff that I have, the more critical stuff is going to be what was in this bag. Because that's going to allow me to start a fire. And it's going to allow me some shelter, the reflective tarp, that type of thing. So it's the rule of threes, right, is going to be warmth, hydration, and food. So it gives me the warmth, that critical factor. The bag will actually hold water if I'm going to use it for that. That type of thing. So it really fills my critical needs right up front, just with this bag. So I always have this put in my vest, no matter what type of vest, right? These, there's a lot more equipment in this one, but okay, so this is an alternate vest, just a standard paddle vest that we were talking about. So this was my son's. Kind of the same thing. We've got in this case it's a dive knife, but it's got serrated on one side and flat point on the other. This one is not so easy to get out at times. So serrate and sharp edge, and so that was what he chose for his paddle knife vest. On this side, there's obviously a whistle on it. We've got a waterproof or dive flashlight in this case. It's pink, and that was also his choice. So, and in this, you'll never forgive me for that. Yeah. So in this case, again, what we had in the other vest was a garbage bag, a reflective blanket. There's some cordage in there, some wax cordage, about 20 feet, as well as matches. And they're all vacuum sealed in a bag and waterproofed. So this was a quick way of, no matter what vest I was going in, or if I had people coming with me, I would throw these in a lot of my vests, just so people had on them if they got stranded on shore. And kind of having said that, my friend here, Debbie, and Rich last year kind of went through a scenario where you guys got kind of in the North Basin, so there's hundreds of islands out there, yeah. But when you hit the North Basin, there's some pretty big water when the winds come up, and
like 3-4 foot waves.
Yeah, and that's in the shelter of the islands, right?
Yeah.
So as you guys were coming, trying to get back
to our camp,
yeah, and
we lost our way.
Yeah.
Because going in and out of the islands, we totally lost our way. So we did make it around one point of the mainland and out in the open water, which had very big water, like probably 4 or 5 foot waves. Pulled into a sheltered beach area, and by this time it's like 8 o'clock at night, 7, 8 o'clock. We knew we had 45 minutes before nightfall fell.
Yeah.
We had no idea which way our camp was. But we did know that once dark fell, we could see a light, which kind of would direct us, that we could see
Yeah,
from
one of the
our
beacons.
camp.
Yeah.
So we made the decision to stay on the beach overnight.
Yeah, and so a lot of times, and we kind of talked about this, was a lot of times we don't make that decision till it's way past, if we make a panic decision, we're trying to get back to our camp, or we're trying to, that type of thing, right? It'll be way past dark. We've now got to find a place and try and manage the situation in the dark, right? So you guys made that a good decision.
Yeah, we knew we had
Yeah.
about 45 minutes
Yeah.
to stay put, 45 minutes
Yeah.
to gather firewood, because it was September long weekend.
Yeah, so it's
So
colder.
it was beautiful day until the wind came up, temperature dropped, and knew it was going to be a cold night.
So you guys, there was 3 of you guys, right?
Yeah,
You
3 of
guys,
us, yeah.
so-
And not properly dressed,
Yeah, you're in
because
shorts
it
and a
was a
t-shirt.
beautiful day when we left,
Yeah.
shorts and tank tops. So, yeah.
and everybody. So one of the fellows had his knife. You guys had some stuff.
Yeah, a knife
But-
and a fire steel.
Yeah.
And,
So you guys gathered lots of wood.
yeah, we gathered a pile of wood, found the best sheltered area we could. Mind you, it was on the beach, so sand,
Yeah.
when it's damp,
It's
is
cold, absolutely, yeah.
but we
Yeah.
did manage. The other fellow, Rich, and his daughter were able to sleep because I stayed awake all night
and
feeding
fed the fire. So if I get lost, I'm getting lost with you because you'll feed the fire all night, right? So kind of so you guys were doing a trip a while later, or a year later, and so Rich, just to kind of a little bit of a story. So Rich had one of my life jackets. And one of the rules we always say when you get lost, sit down, settle down for a minute, right? Think things through, go through all your pockets. Because you don't know, and especially if any of my stuff, I'll have little knives or, blankets, stuffed in everywhere, right?
Yeah,
So anyway, so you guys were on a 9-day canoe trip. And
I went to get a map out of the pocket of Rich's life jacket, but I guess I went in the wrong pocket, because when I put my hand inside, I came out with this very nice little vacuum sealed pouch.
and just happened to have
Yes.
And so in there was a reflective blanket,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So as we've done in the winter, we use these reflective blankets in front of the fire. You can actually sleep, and because it reflects back down on you and behind you, right?
Yeah.
And if there was rain or something like that where you guys were, it would have been a totally different story. So this would have been pretty critical, right?
Yeah.
But kind of the point was we didn't go through our pockets, and it wasn't Rich's vest to start off with.
However,
but
if we'd have gone through the pockets.
Right, your night would have been probably a lot more comfortable, right?
Yes, because I mean, like you said, we've used the reflective blankets in the winter, and they're great.
Yeah.
So having it out there in September, even though it was a cooler night, would have made a huge difference. And
Huge, right?
Yeah.
And so kind of that, and you guys are very comfortable with, because both you and Rich have come out and done a lot of winter camping
yeah,
with me over the years as
Yeah.
well. And we live with our reflective blankets around the fire, and or small lean-to type things, right?
Yeah.
We use them all the time. So you guys are very comfortable with using them, right?
oh, absolutely.
So
yeah.
kind of some of the things that we talk about, one of the canoes that they borrowed, and usually all my canoes, or not all of them, but when I use them, I tie a tarp under the back seat, so it's always tied to the seat. So in a rainstorm or something like that, we can grab it and
Yeah.
set it up and at least lean to or get some shelter.
Yeah,
windbreak.
and even the tarp.
Yeah.
So if we'd had a tarp
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
heat shield.
So it's something to be what's on you, and especially if it's your vest, then you're confident in But if you're using a rental vest or something else, right? What does it take to make a small kit up?